As we think about ethics, we are thinking about decisions we may have to make at various points in our lives. In this video, we will explore different perspectives on the life and death issues of abortion, IVF, and euthanasia. What is abortion? It is the ending of a pregnancy by removing the fetus or embryo from the womb before it is able to survive. When an egg is fertilized by a sperm, it becomes a zygote, which after about 4 days becomes an embryo. At around 9 weeks, about the stage you see in the picture on your screen, the body parts have formed and it becomes a fetus. The law on abortion varies from state to state within Australia, but only South Australia, Western Australia and the Northern Territory collect statistics on the number of abortions carried out. In 2005, the Department of Health and Ageing suggested that there are approximately 83,000 abortions in Australia each year. Christian views differ greatly regarding abortion, as with many ethical issues. Moreover, what the different branches of the Church teach is not necessarily representative of views of its adherents. The Catholic Church teaches that life begins at conception and is created according to God's plan. Each individual human is known to God before they are born and is made in the image of God, as the creation story says in Genesis. A study from 1996, though a bit dated today, shows that 72% of Australian Catholics believe that decisions about abortion should be left to the discretion of a woman and her doctors. The Anglican Church also teaches that abortion is a moral evil. However, it also acknowledges cases in which it may be the lesser of two evils, such as if the mother's life is at risk. For Buddhists, as with any group of people, there is a range of opinion on abortion. For many, abortion goes against the first of the 5 precepts of ethical behavior, the principle of non-harm. Damien Keown, researcher on Buddhism, notes that most Buddhists believe that life begins at conception, as that is when a new identity is given as a result of karma. Many Buddhists believe this is a highly personal decision, and the individual concerned is responsible for the consequences, and the motives and intention of the decision also play a role in its karmic effects. During early research on in vitro fertilization, or the fertilization of the egg outside of the woman's body, Pope Pius XII in 1949 condemned the work, saying the researchers were taking God's work into their own hands. The Catholic Church continued to oppose IVF, with Pope Paul VI writing an encyclical called Of Human Life in 1968, which links sex to procreation, although does not mention IVF. However, in England in 1978, after many failed attempts along the way, the first baby was born through IVF procedures. In 1987, the Vatican issued an official statement condemning IVF. By the early 2000s, IVF became more mainstream and accessible to the general population, and there are now over 500,000 people who are conceived this way. The Catholic Church continues to officially oppose IVF, though a Pew Research survey of American Catholics in 2013 suggests that only 13% believe IVF is morally wrong. The Church teaches that IVF undermines the dignity of sex. It holds that life begins at conception, so is concerned about the embryos that do not survive. Some see IVF treatment as a slippery slope towards stem cell research and genetically modified humans. Some Christians focus on the joy IVF can bring to a couple who are unable to have children. Similarly, some Buddhist thinkers argue that IVF removes one form of suffering, that of not being able to have children. However, as Buddhism also teaches that life begins at conception, there remain concerns with fertilized eggs being destroyed. Some raise concerns about inequality, given the high cost of the procedure and the low success rate. The word euthanasia comes from Greek, meaning good death. It is the intentional killing of a patient, either by an action or by abstaining from acting. It can either be voluntary, the person requests that they are killed, non-voluntary, the patient is unable to make a decision, usually because of their medical condition, or non-voluntary, against the patient's wishes. Euthanasia and assisted suicide are illegal in Australia, although prosecutions of family members who have helped their loved ones die are rare. Old age and death are 2 aspects of suffering, or dukkha, that Buddhism is concerned with. Buddhism emphasizes that all things that start must stop, and death encapsulates the idea of impermanence in Buddhist thought. Buddhist teaching forbids the taking of life, and the Buddha forbade monks from taking their own lives or assisting others to commit suicide. However, in Buddhism, death is seen as a natural part of life and not something to be preserved at all costs. It is important in Buddhism to develop the right attitude towards death as a passage to a new life, and it is preferable to approach death with a clear mind. Where drugs are administered to alleviate pain, which have the effect of killing the patient, it is more acceptable, as the intention is to relieve suffering. Likewise, many Christians oppose euthanasia in most cases, as life is believed to be a gift from God, which only God can take away. Like Buddhists, many Christians believe that the spiritual process of dying should not be interfered with. There are options available to the terminally ill which do not include euthanasia, such as hospice care. Pope John Paul II spoke out against what he perceived as a culture of death in modern times, and argued that instead of seeking to kill in order to alleviate suffering, I quote, "true compassion leads to sharing another's pain,